Dr. Jessica Thompson was having a perfectly normal Tuesday at NASA's Communications Center until the coffee machine started speaking in an ominous alien language. The machine's digital display flickered with strange symbols before displaying "Submit or Perish" in Comic Sans font. "Hey chat, you won't believe what's happening at work right now," she said into her phone, adjusting her livestream setup. With over 2 million subscribers to her Science with Jess channel, she had made a habit of sharing the quirky moments of her NASA career. "Our coffee machine just got possessed, and I'm pretty sure it's not because of Gary's programming updates this time." The sky outside her office window darkened as a massive ship, looking like what would happen if a heavy metal album cover had a baby with a Gothic cathedral, materialized above Houston. Smaller ships, each decorated with what appeared to be the space equivalent of speed stripes and flame decals, flanked it. "Okay, folks, either this is the most elaborate coffee machine prank ever, or we're about to have some very extra visitors," Jessica commented, moving her phone to capture the view. Her chat exploded with messages, many pointing out how the main ship looked suspiciously like their cousin's failed art school project. The ship's external speakers crackled to life, and a voice that sounded like it had been practicing menacing in front of a mirror for years boomed across the city. "Humans of Earth, tremble before the might of the Krathos Empire. We are the scourge of 10,000 worlds, the shadow that eclipses hope." Did they just put a lens flare effect on their ships? Jessica interrupted, zooming in on the unnecessary light show emanating from the vessels. "Chat, are you seeing this? They got RGB lighting in space." Her viewers were already hard at work. Within minutes, the first memes appeared. The main ship photoshopped to wear a backwards baseball cap, the threat message overlaid on pictures of Grumpy Cat, and someone had already auto-tuned the alien speech into a surprisingly catchy beat. The Krathos commander's next message came through all electronic devices. "Your insolence will be your downfall. We have conquered species far more advanced than you. We are the Night Fat." "Oh my God," Jessica snorted, unable to contain herself. "They're space goths," complete with dramatic monologues. She pulled up some of the memes her viewers were creating. "Look at this one. Someone added platform boots to their ship." The alien transmission suddenly cut to a close-up of what appeared to be their commander, a tall, imposing figure with ceremonial armor that would have made any Final Fantasy character jealous. The being's expression was one of practiced malevolence, completely undermined by what appeared to be glitter in their atmosphere generation field. "This is your final warning," the commander growled. "The Krathos Empire." Has Hot Topic expanded to space? Jessica asked her audience, who were now sharing links to a hastily created Rate Their Invasion aesthetic website, because I'm getting major 2007 emo band vibes here. The commander's eye twitched, a gesture that transcended species. "Our mere presence has driven civilizations to madness. We are the harbingers of." Chat. They even have catchphrases. Jessica was practically crying with laughter now. "This is better than that time we found water on Mars." As if to prove their seriousness, the Krathos ships performed an intimidating formation change, complete with what could only be described as unnecessary barrel rolls and Power Ranger-style transformation sequences. Jessica's livestream had now gone viral, with millions watching as humanity's first contact with a galactic superpower devolved into what one viewer described as the universe's most extra PowerPoint presentation. The Krathos Empire, scourge of 10,000 worlds, harbinger of despair, and self-proclaimed masters of the dramatic entrance, had just made their biggest mistake. They had become a meme. And on Earth, nothing was more powerful than that. Commander Zexithol stood before the massive holographic display, his ceremonial armor creaking as he clenched his four-fingered hands. The display showed thousands of human communication channels, all buzzing with what his intelligence officers had classified as weaponized irreverence. "Lieutenant Rodriguez," he growled, focusing on a particular human who had become the bane of his existence. "Show me what he's done now." An aide reluctantly projected the latest image. The commander's prize dreadnought, edited to look like something called a food truck, with a giant neon sign reading "Thul's Space Tacos," now with extra drama sauce. Meanwhile, at the U.S. Space Force's newly established Meme Warfare Division, formerly the Break Room, Lieutenant Mike Rodriguez was adding the finishing touches to his latest creation. "Hey, Captain," he called out. "Think, the commander will notice I added googly eyes to his fleet this time." The psychological warfare battle had been raging for 3 days. For every threat the Krathos Empire broadcast, Rodriguez and his team responded with what they called maximum effort trolling. Their latest victory had been converting the Empire's fearsome battle anthem into something called a lofi hip-hop remix to study and relax to. "Your attempts at humor are futile." Commander Zexthul's message boomed across Earth's communications networks. "We have developed a psychological attack that will break your species' will to." "Hey Siri, add jazz hands," Rodriguez interrupted, his fingers flying across the holographic interface. Within seconds, the commander's threatening gesture had been modified to include sparkly digital effects and rainbow trails. The Empire's next broadcast showed their mighty armada arranged in an attack formation. Rodriguez's team responded by editing it to look like a synchronized swimming performance, complete with classical music and sports commentary. "Sir," one of Zexthul's officers reported, "the humans have started something called a caption contest with your latest speech." The commander made the mistake of looking at the entries. His favorite, though he would never admit it, was "When Mom says we have conquest at home." He didn't understand it, but something about it made his secondary heart flutter. Back on Earth, Rodriguez was dealing with an unexpected crisis. "Sir," a junior officer called out, "the Krathos are. They're trying to make their own memes." The attempt was painfully obvious. Their latest threat message had come with something that looked like a political cartoon, drawn by someone who had only had humor described to them, theoretically. It showed a stick figure human apparently being intimidated by a very detailed, technical drawing of a Krathos warship. "Bless their hearts, they're trying," Rodriguez chuckled before adding kawaii eyes and blush stickers to the warship. "Let's show them how it's done." The next hour saw an unprecedented exchange. For every carefully constructed psychological attack the Empire launched, Rodriguez's team responded with everything from dad jokes to deep-fried memes. The breaking point came when they turned Commander Zexthul's most fearsome warning yet into a vibe check video. "Lieutenant," the commander's voice crackled through a private channel. "What is this drip your species keeps referring to? And why do your people insist my battle armor lacks it?" Rodriguez smiled. The mighty Krathos Empire, it seemed, was beginning to show cracks in its fearsome facade. He had just received word that several junior Krathos officers had been caught trying to recreate something called a planking challenge in their ship's engine room. "With all due respect, Commander," Rodriguez replied, adding a pair of pixelated sunglasses to his latest creation. "You might want to Google deal with it." As the image went viral across both human and Krathos networks, Rodriguez couldn't help but notice that the Empire's next threat message seemed almost uncertain, like someone who had just discovered their carefully cultivated image of cool might actually be parent levels of cringe. The meme war was far from over. But for the first time in known history, the Krathos Empire was learning a valuable lesson. Never bring a dreadnought to a main fight. Staff Sergeant Ashley Williams had not expected her Marine combat training to include making an alien laugh, but here she was, staring at a captured Krathos officer who looked like He'd rather face a firing squad than endure another second of her attempts at humor. "Look," she said, pacing the interrogation room, "all I'm saying is that your species has never experienced a single tickle. Not one. How do you live like that?" The prisoner, Lieutenant Kritak, maintained his stoic demeanor. The Krathos Empire does not engage in such primitive physical responses. We are beyond such. Beyond joy. Beyond fun. Ashley leaned forward, a mischievous glint in her eye. "You know what? I bet you're ticklish. Your species has the same nerve endings as humans, according to our scientists. You've just never had anyone try." Kritak's secondary eyes widened slightly. "You wouldn't dare violate the Galactic conventions off." The rest of his sentence was cut off by a most un-Krathos-like sound, as Ashley's fingers found what she had theorized was the alien equivalent of a funny bone. The noise that escaped the lieutenant's mouth was something between a squeak and a chirp. "Ha!" Ashley exclaimed. "I knew it. You've got tickle spots just like us." The horror on Kritak's face was quickly replaced by something the Empire had never trained him for, an uncontrollable urge to laugh. His mighty empire had protocols for torture, mind control, and psychological warfare, but nothing in his training had prepared him for the sensation of being tickled. The security camera footage of what happened next would change the course of the war. The fearsome Krathos officer, decorated with 17 medals for maintaining imperial dignity, dissolved into a fit of giggles that sounded remarkably like a human child at a birthday party. "Stop! What is this sorcery?" Kritak gasped between laughs. This is. He couldn't even finish his sentence as Ashley found another ticklish spot. The video spread through both human and Krathos networks faster than their respective departments could track. Within hours, the hashtag Krathos Scanlaw was trending across every known communication system in the galaxy. Back on the Krathos command ship, Commander Zixthul watched the footage with a mix of horror and fascination. "What have they done to him?" he demanded. His science officer shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, according to our analysis, they've activated a previously unknown response in our nervous system. It appears to be pleasant. Zixthul's voice cracked. "Look at him. He's lost all military bearing. He's having fun, sir," the science officer finished, unable to hide the curiosity in their voice. "Our research shows that this tickling phenomenon is a universal constant we never knew existed. We've been so focused on maintaining our image of terror that we've suppressed our own ability to what? To experience joy, sir." Meanwhile, Ashley had made another breakthrough. She discovered that showing the Lieutenant cat videos produced the same chemical response in Krathos brains as it did in humans. Kritak was now voluntarily watching his 7th straight hour of kitten compilations. "I don't understand," he said, wiping away tears of laughter. "Why would a small feline knocking objects off a table produce such an emotional response?" "That's the beauty of it," Ashley replied, queuing up another video. "It doesn't have to make sense to be funny." The day's reports to High Command were unprecedented. Multiple Krathos ships reported outbreaks of unauthorized joy. 3 destroyer captains had been caught trying to replicate the tickle experiment on their crews. And most alarmingly, the Empire's fearsome battle cry had been replaced in several sectors by something officers described as genuine, heartfelt laughter. As Ashley watched Kritak attempting to explain the concept of "it's funny because it's true" to his increasingly curious guards, she realized they'd found something more powerful than any weapon: the universal language of laughter. Tom Baker's office at the Pentagon was plastered with what he called his arsenal. Hundreds of post-it notes containing dad jokes he'd collected over 20 years. As the lead analyst for alien psychological assessment, He'd never expected his hobby to become a matter of national security. "So you're telling me," General Roberts said, staring at the latest intelligence report, "that the entire Krathos Third Fleet is currently trying to understand why the chicken crossed the road?" Tom nodded, adjusting his glasses. "They've assembled a task force of their best minds. They're convinced it's some sort of military code. Last night, they sent a message demanding to know the strategic significance of this chicken's road-crossing maneuver." Meanwhile, aboard the Krathos analysis vessel Eternal Dread, recently nicknamed Eternal Dad by its junior officers, a team of elite analysts was indeed breaking down the chicken joke into its component parts. "Perhaps the chicken represents Earth's military forces," one analyst suggested, adding to a holographic display that now contained 17 different theories. "And the road symbolizes the boundary between our empires." But then, why would they freely share this strategic information? Another questioned their ceremonial armor looking somewhat less imposing due to the "Hi Hungry, I'm Dad" sticker someone had secretly applied to it. The situation had escalated when Kevin Martinez, a Chicago stand-up comedian who'd been smuggled aboard the ship by a group of humor-curious Krathos officers, started an underground comedy club in Cargo Bay 3. His introduction to dad jokes 101 sessions were drawing bigger crowds than the mandatory Maintaining Your Menacing Aura workshops. "Knock knock," Kevin would say to his eager alien audience. "Who has arrived at the designated entry point?" They would respond in perfect unison, still working on the casual delivery. Back at the Pentagon, Tom was showing the general another troubling development. "Sir, look at this message we intercepted. It's the first attempt at a Krathos-created dad joke." The message read, "What did the superior officer say to the malfunctioning terror beam? Ion disappointed in you." "Mother of God," the general whispered, "they're learning." The contamination spread faster than anyone could have predicted. Krathos battle meditation sessions were being interrupted by poorly suppressed snickers. The Empire's fearsome war chants were being replaced by what could only be described as alien comedy open mic attempts. Tom's collection of dad jokes had become required reading for all Empire forces trying to understand human psychology. His most basic puns were being studied with the same intensity usually reserved for military encryption. "Why did the Scarecrow win an award?" a Krathos cadet would ask, reading from the translated joke manual. "Because it was outstanding in its field," their squad would respond, before spending 3 hours debating the agricultural and achievement-based implications of the statement. The crisis point came during a routine intimidation broadcast. A high-ranking Krathos commander, attempting to deliver a threatening message to Earth, made the mistake of starting with, "What's the deal with space travel?" The horror in the command center was palpable. The commander had gone full Seinfeld. Kevin Martinez, now known in underground Krathos comedy circles as the Joker, had created something beautiful and terrible. His latest achievement was teaching a group of elite Krathos guards the concept of "that's what she said." The resulting chaos in their ranks when they'd finally understood the joke led to the first recorded instance of a milk-through-the-nose incident in Krathos history. As Tom added another post-it to his wall, this one containing the first successfully created Krathos dad joke, he couldn't help but smile. The Empire had spent millennia building their reputation on fear and intimidation, only to be undone by the simple power of "Hi Hungry, I'm Dad." "Sir," an aide rushed into his office, "you need to see this. The Krathos High Command. They're starting to use puns in their official communications." The war for the galaxy's sense of humor had entered a new phase, and Earth's greatest weapon turned out to be the humble dad joke. The Grand Council Chamber of the Krathos Empire had witnessed countless historic moments over its 10,000-year history. Today, however, would be remembered as the day Ambassador Emily Cooper introduced knock-knock jokes to the most feared species in the galaxy. "Your Excellencies," Emily began, standing before the imposing Council of 13, their ceremonial armor glinting under the light of 3 artificial suns. Before we begin these peace negotiations, I'd like to share a traditional Earth greeting. Knock knock. The council members exchanged confused glances through their menacing masks. Supreme Chancellor Vexthor, his voice like grinding granite, finally responded, "Our sensors detect no physical knocking. Is your audio translation matrix malfunctioning?" No, Emily smiled. "You're supposed to say, 'Who's there?' Who has arrived?" The Chancellor attempted, his universal translator struggling with the casual nature of the phrase. Interrupting cow. The silence that followed was deafening. The Council's Minister of War gripped his ceremonial staff tighter, wondering if this was some sort of human military code. "This is the part where you say, 'interrupting cow,'" Emily prompted. "Interrupting cow. Imu." The chamber erupted in chaos. 2 junior council members fell out of their floating thrones laughing. The Minister of Eternal Darkness started hiccuping, a sound that had never before been heard in the sacred chamber. Chancellor Vexthor's secondary mouth twitched in what his species would later recognize as their first recorded smile. Ambassador Cooper, the Minister of War, managed between suppressed chuckles. "Are you suggesting that a bovine creature would interrupt a formal dialogue simply to make its species-specific vocalization?" That's the joke, yes." "Brilliant," declared one of the younger council members, Lord Zix, who had recently been caught watching human comedy specials. "The humor derives from the unexpected interruption and the complete disregard for formal communication protocols." The Chancellor raised a hand for silence, but his voice carried an unusual tremor. Perhaps we should hear another of these knock-knock rituals before proceeding with negotiations." Emily's diplomatic training had never covered this scenario. "Okay, here's one. Knock knock. Who's there?" The entire council responded in unison, their ceremonial masks unable to hide their eagerness. "Orange. Orange who?" They leaned forward in their thrones. Knock knock. The council members looked at each other, confused by this deviation from the expected pattern. The Chancellor, now fully invested, responded, "Who's there?" "Orange. Orange who?" This continued several more times until finally, Emily delivered the punchline, "Orange, you glad I didn't say banana?" The resulting explosion of laughter shorted out the chamber's ancient solemnity field, a device installed millennia ago to prevent exactly this type of undignified display. 3 council members immediately requested asylum on Earth to study this powerful form of psychological warfare. The Chancellor, wiping tears from all 4 eyes, attempted to regain control. "We will need time to analyze these complex diplomatic protocols. Ambassador Cooper, would you be willing to share more of these knock-knock traditions?" "Actually," Emily said, pulling out her tablet, "wait until you hear about why did the chicken cross the road. Your analysts are going to love this one." As the most powerful beings in the galaxy gathered around her like children at story time, Emily sent a quick message to Earth. "Mission accomplished. Send more dad jokes. And maybe some rubber chickens. For diplomatic purposes, of course." Later that day, the Council passed its first unanimous resolution in 3 centuries. The immediate formation of the Department of Knock-Knock Affairs, with Lord Zix appointed as the first Minister of Joke Analysis and Punchline Studies. General James Jokes Anderson stood in the hidden hangar, admiring his fleet of modified ice cream trucks. Each vehicle had been retrofitted with warp drives, shield generators, and most importantly, industrial-grade speaker systems still playing their signature jingles. "Sir," Captain Sarah Murphy reported, saluting while wearing a clown nose, "the intergalactic improv troupe is ready for deployment. We've loaded the complete collection of Earth's comedy classics into the database." The general nodded, running his hand along the side of the lead vehicle, now painted with stealth coating, but still maintaining its iconic ice cream cone logo. Operation Sugar Rush is a go. Remember, people, our mission is to spread laughter deep behind enemy lines. In the loading bay, teams of specialists were packing the final supplies. Whoopee cushions modified for Kratos anatomy, joy buzzers calibrated to their unique electrical fields, and enough rubber chickens to start a synthetic poultry farm. "Sir," a lieutenant called out, "we've just received intelligence that the Empire has instituted mandatory frown checks at all military installations." "Perfect timing then," Anderson grinned, pulling up a holographic map of Kratos space. "They're getting desperate. Time to launch Phase 1. Operation Brain Freeze." The fleet of ice cream trucks, now designated as tactical humor deployment vehicles, slipped through the Empire's defense grid by playing their jingles at a frequency that confused enemy sensors. The Kratos ships, already dealing with crews struggling to maintain their intimidating demeanor, registered them as audio hallucinations. Meanwhile, Captain Murphy's improv team had infiltrated a major Kratos military base disguised as efficiency consultants. Their first performance, a recreation of the Three Stooges' greatest hits, was logged in official records as an emergency session on human combat techniques. "Watch this," Murphy whispered to her team as she approached a group of stern-faced Kratos officers. "Hey, why don't aliens like knock-knock jokes?" "Because they space out at the punchline." The resulting laughter set off 3 different security alarms designed to detect unauthorized joy. By the time the security teams arrived, they found the officers trying to create their own space puns between fits of giggles. Back on the lead ice cream truck, now codenamed Rocky Road Runner, General Anderson received the first reports of success. The classic comedy shows they'd been broadcasting had created what Empire officials were calling a catastrophic outbreak of entertainment. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "the Three Stooges have been classified as a Class 1 military threat. The Empire claims their nuck is some sort of mind control technique." Anderson chuckled, watching the feeds from various Empire worlds. On one planet, a group of Kratos warriors was attempting to recreate the Ministry of Silly Walks. On another, a high-level strategy meeting had devolved into an impromptu comedy open mic night. The tipping point came when Captain Murphy's team introduced the concept of improv games to a Kratos military academy. The sight of future Empire officers playing "Whose Line Is It Anyway?" spread through secure channels faster than the Empire's cybersecurity could contain it. "General," Murphy's voice crackled over the comm, "you won't believe this. They've started a comedy revolution. The younger officers are calling themselves the League of Extraordinary Chuckles." Anderson watched as his ice cream truck fleet, now accompanied by several defecting Kratos ships, their fearsome symbols hastily repainted with smiley faces, continued their mission. The sound of ice cream jingles mixed with alien laughter echoed through space. "Sir," his aide reported, "we're getting strange readings from the Empire's capital world. It appears they're having a comedy festival." The general smiled, setting course for the next target. The Empire had built its power on fear, but they never stood a chance against the disarming power of pure, simple joy. As his fleet jumped to warp speed, the last thing Empire sensors detected was the distant sound of a comedy classic. Good Humor Man coming. The Temple of Eternal Solemnity loomed before Colonel David Laughs Lewis and his team of Marine comics, its ancient architecture designed to suppress any hint of joy. The building's very stones were infused with minerals that dampened positive emotions, and its spires were carved with the most depressing moments in Kratos history. "Remember, team," Lewis whispered to his squad, each member wearing standard Marine combat gear modified with red noses and hidden joy buzzers. "This is what we've trained for. Operation Stand Up is go." Their intel had revealed that the supreme leader of the Krathos Empire was holding an emergency session to address the spreading plague of humor. It was the perfect time to strike. "Sir," Private Jenkins reported, adjusting his fake mustache, "the temple's anti-happiness field is at maximum power. They've even got specialized guards trained to detect smirks." Lewis grinned, pulling out their secret weapon, a datapad containing what Earth's best comedy writers had dubbed the ultimate roast. "That's why we're going to hit them with everything we've got. Time to show them how we do comedy on Earth." The team infiltrated the temple during the Supreme Leader's address, disguised as a delegation of professional frown consultants. The Grand Chamber was packed with the Empire's most senior officials, all struggling to maintain their traditional scowls. The Supreme Leader, a figure so intimidating that lesser species were said to go blind from fear upon seeing him, was mid-speech when Lewis made his move. "And so, we must purge this infection of joy from our—" "Yo, Supreme Leader," Lewis interrupted, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Your empire's so evil, even your shadow tries to run away." The gasps from the assembled dignitaries were audible. No one had ever dared to interrupt the Supreme Leader, let alone with a "Yo Mama" style joke. "Your face is so scary, black holes look at you and say, 'Dude, lighten up,'" Private Jenkins added, following their carefully choreographed routine. The Supreme Leader's secondary hearts nearly stopped. "How dare you? How dare we? How dare you run an empire without a single comedy club?" Lewis continued, "Your idea of a good time is alphabetizing your collection of skull trophies." To everyone's shock, a small snicker escaped from one of the High Council members. The sound was like a crack in a dam. Soon, more followed. "Your empire's so out of touch, you think a meme is a type of battle formation," another Marine called out. "And let's talk about that armor. Did you raid a Gothic Halloween store? Or is brooding space lore just your everyday look?" The Supreme Leader's legendary composure began to crack. His lower lip quivered, something that hadn't happened since he was a larva. This is what we call a roast. Your supreme grumpiness," Lewis explained, now standing directly before the throne. "Because sometimes the best way to face fear is to laugh at it. And let's be honest, your whole Lords of Terror shtick is getting pretty old. You're like the empire that peaked in high school and can't stop talking about the glory days." The broadcast, now streaming across all Krathos space, showed something unprecedented. The Supreme Leader fighting back a smile. His centuries of training in maintaining a terrifying demeanor were crumbling in the face of well-crafted Earth humor. Your mother was a particularly stern individual," the Supreme Leader attempted to counter, drawing gasps from the crowd. He had tried to make a joke, poorly, but it was an attempt. "See, he's learning," Lewis declared triumphantly. "Though maybe start with something easier than Yo Mama jokes. Have you heard about why the chicken crossed the road?" As the Supreme Leader of the most feared empire in the galaxy found himself engaged in an impromptu comedy workshop, the last vestiges of the temple's anti-happiness field shattered. The sound of genuine, unrestricted laughter echoed through halls that had known only solemn silence for millennia. The battle for the galaxy's sense of humor had been won not with weapons, but with words, and a few well-timed ad jokes. Dr. Rachel Bennett stood at the podium of what had once been the Krathos Empire's most feared military academy. The building's Gothic architecture still screamed evil overlord aesthetic, but the addition of rubber chickens as gargoyles somewhat undermined the menacing effect. "Welcome," she addressed the first graduating class of the Intergalactic Comedy Academy, "to what I think we can all agree is the universe's greatest plot twist." The audience, a mix of former Empire officers, human comedy experts, and various alien species who'd been drawn to this strange new cultural revolution, erupted in applause. In the front row, former Marine Jack Thompson sat beside his star pupil, a Krathos battlemaster who'd recently mastered the art of the callback joke. When we started the Advanced Memetics course, Rachel continued, some questioned whether the species that invented brooding in space could ever truly understand the subtleties of a well-timed, that's what she said. Today, I'm proud to say that our Krathos students not only got the joke, but have started adding their own unique spin to Earth humor. In the back of the hall, Kevin Martinez, now Dean of Theoretical Comedy Studies, watched with pride as his experimental cross-species improv program graduates demonstrated their skills. A former Empire Dreadnought commander was performing a surprisingly nuanced stand-up routine about the challenges of maintaining a menacing aura while dealing with space traffic. And let's not forget, Rachel added, the groundbreaking work being done in our mean research department. Thanks to their efforts, we now know that the chemical reaction in a Krathos brain when they see a cat video is identical to the human response. Science has finally proven that cute animal videos are, in fact, a universal language. The former Imperial Throne Room, now the Last Laugh Comedy Club, was hosting its weekly open mic night. The current performer, an ex-Terror Fleet captain, was killing it with his routine about the impracticality of evil space lord fashion choices. Why did we think spikes on everything was a good idea? He asked the crowd. Do you know how many times I ripped my cave? The dry cleaning bills were scarier than our invasion fleet. In her office, Rachel reviewed the latest cultural integration reports. The transformation of the Krathos Empire into the Galactic Comedy Coalition had been more successful than anyone could have imagined. The former Empire's propaganda minister, now running a successful sitcom called How I Met Your Battlemaster, had just won an intergalactic Emmy. Doctor, her assistant interrupted. You need to see this. The former Supreme Leader's new comedy special just broke all streaming records across 3 quadrants. Rachel smiled, remembering how it all started with a single dad joke. The Supreme Leader, who now went by the stage name, the artist formerly known as Supreme, had found his true calling as a comedian specializing in self-deprecating humor about his former evil empire days. The final graduation ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy, as the class of former warriors and new comedians threw their graduation caps, complete with tiny joy buzzers, into the air. Rachel couldn't help but think about how far they'd come. Remember, she concluded her speech, as you go forth to spread laughter across the stars, remember the words of our first valedictorian. We came to conquer the galaxy, but instead, the galaxy conquered our hearts with a whoopee cushion. As the celebration continued, news came in from across former Empire space. The last remnants of the anti-happiness fields had been converted into comedy club spotlights. The fearsome battle fleets now hosted intergalactic comedy cruises, and the universe had finally learned to laugh together. In the end, it turned out that the most powerful force in the galaxy wasn't fear, superior technology, or even military might. It was the simple, universal truth that everyone, even the most fearsome space empire, just needed a good laugh.